Ed, I didn't see that coming. I mean, I guess I should have, but I didn't.
Well, my thesis statement is that first album is like everything a 15-year-old boy needs. I think that's the Van Halen 1 album for sure.
Oh yeah, I tell my rock history classes that one album sold more guitars than the Beatles' appearance, than anything since the Beatles' appearance on Ed Sullivan, 1964.
That's amazing.
All right. Are we there?
We're rolling. We just need to share.
Okay.
The sharing is caring.
It takes us a minute or so to get this up on our.
And
How long have you been doing this?
6 years now. 6 years doing the podcast. Yeah.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah.
And much like LeBron, we refuse to stop.
Obviously, we share similar political perspectives. So
exactly.
Well, I'm going to be monitoring closely Trump in Greenville today. He could turn me around with he could change everything.
Infect the whole coastal plain.
If he hits it out of the park, I don't know. I'm going to call the I'm going to call the Guilford Board of Elections and ask if I can pull back my mail-in vote. Okay.
Park, do you know Cameron Crowe? Can you get him on the phone right now?
No, I couldn't get Cameron on the Crowe right now. He was West Coast Rolling Stone. He was there before they moved east to New York.
Right.
And then by the time I got on board, he was all beginning to do his books and films and all that. I don't think he ever really wrote again for Rolling Stone after that.
It just occurred to me that Motown moved from Detroit to L.A. Rolling Stone moved from the West Coast to New York. You know what that means? It means absolutely nothing.
Doesn't mean anything really.
Nothing at all.
Playboy moved from Chicago to L.A. and it doesn't mean anything.
Let me make sure.
Well, the whole music industry basically moved from New York to L.A. after around 64, 65.
And now it's moved right into the turlet. Jeez.
Yes.
Into the turlet.
What music industry?
Hang on here. All right, I'm not doing it right today. Hold on. Jeez.
Does this go live or do you just put it up?
We do it live and we have it as a podcast. Just the audio as a podcast. And our podcast is on all the major podcasting platforms like your Apple, Google, Spotify, all that stuff.
Nice.
This will do it. By the way, I am looking also at what possibly is the most annoying thing ever, which is the Rolling Stone 500 album list.
How dare you?
Right. It's just, we have a thing about lists to begin with, but they abuse the privilege, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go. It is the Brad and Britt cast. We're glad you're with us. And if you're watching us live here in Facebookville and on YouTube, you see we have Park Pewterbaugh with us, author, journalist, teacher, legend, and not really very far away from us, kind of in the same corner of the world that we are. Park Pewterbaugh. Hey!
Hey, how's it going, guys?
All right.
I have to show you my T-shirt.
What is your T-shirt? Let me see.
It says more cowbell.
There it is.
That is some strong stuff. First note that went up was from a student of yours, Eric Eves, who said, you were the greatest ever history of rock professor, and just a little shout out to you.
Oh wow, how cool!
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric.
When did you? It's not actually a transition, but when did you start teaching? Because I wasn't aware of that until I was aware of that, because I just knew you were the writer. When did that happen?
When 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote, among other places, I wrote for the News and Record for many years. They had me doing concert reviews mostly, but also features and interviews and stuff. And it was kind of neat. I got to see everything that came to Greensboro, every concert that came to Greensboro. and Winston-Salem and Chapel Hill. They would even send me to Walnut Creek to. Can you imagine the newspaper
amazing.
having enough money to do that?
It's insane.
They don't do reviews anymore, period.
Right.
But back then they sent me to Atlanta to review Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
Those were the days of newspaper journalism. But the classical writer was Tim Lindemann, who was the head of the music department at Guilford College. And he got to thinking that they needed a rock history course out there. And since we were both working for the News and Record and knew each other's work, he thought of me. And I was happy to do it. And it's turned out to be really great for me because all of the newspaper and magazine stuff went away. There's just not much money left, and there's very little print journalism and no money in it either.
It's weird to think about because you and I were talking right before we started about Cameron Crowe, and he made a movie called Almost Famous, which is kind of his homage to 70s arena rock and to that entire scene that you kind of dabbled in as well with Cream magazine and with Rolling Stone and with Spin, and it was an entire industry, and it was very influential, and there was a group of you guys that kind of knew each other and hung out and they really controlled the culture for a while. And like you said, that stuff it's all gone. It's all vanished.
It is. I mean, could you name, people knew writers by name.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could name a contemporary music journalist, a younger contemporary who has made a name for himself.
Right.
Or herself.
Yeah. Well, the democracy of the internet is a double-edged sword demonstrated here more than you can imagine, because now everybody gets to be a critic.
Mm-hmm.
Professional criticism is by definition kind of irrelevant because my opinion counts as much as yours. And if I play it right and do it on TikTok, well, God damn it, here I am lip syncing Dreams by Fleetwood Mac, and it's the biggest fucking thing on earth. What is that? Okay, don't get me started.
8 million hits, 8 million streams,
hits, right.
Whatever that means.
Right,
means 8 million people have nothing to do.
Yeah.
Right. That's what it means. I can't even imagine what it was like to be there and when you were in it and when it was actually going and you knew these guys and you were going to shows and reviewing albums and writing stuff. Did you at least take the time to pause and go, man, this is really kind of fun. I don't know if this is always going to be around.
I knew it was a good thing, a great thing. I enjoyed it to the hilt.
Yeah.
And going into it, when I got hired at Rolling Stone, and this is a magazine I'd grown up reading, subscribing to almost from the first issue. So I was tickled in the extreme to be working there.
Right.
Now, I was, all of the opportunities, all the people I got to meet, my fellow writers, that was all great. There were some aspects of working there that weren't. I didn't love living in New York that much at that time. That was the, what was it? What was that famous headline? Ford to New York, drop dead. Do you remember that?
Exactly.
1976. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a cesspool. Now I don't know, it's worse when it was dangerous and nasty, or now when it's so over gentrified and unbelievably expensive and just it's kind of an urban theme park.
Right. Well, you're either a Disney store, M&M store, Times Square person, or you're a porn movie Times Square person from that
42nd Street.
There's kind of nothing in between there. I told this story about 6 months ago to talk about the fact that the guard has changed so much, and it's reflected in that Rolling Stone 500 greatest albums list that they just revised, I think, for the third time. But at Thanksgiving dinner last year, our daughter, who's 27, she said to me, and she prefaces with, "You're going to get really mad at me for saying this." That's always great when they start with that.
Here we go.
But I just don't get the big deal about the Beatles. What is up with that? I just don't get it. I don't understand it. And so I said, you know what? I fully understand you haven't really
There's no context.
Yeah. And
Right.
there's no context, and
You don't know what was happening before then, and all of a sudden how they just blew the doors off of everything that was going on before then and reinvented everything.
And I said, you know what? Maybe there'll be a moment where you hear it and listen to it, and you find out a little bit more about it. But I understand it, and when I start to do the math about the Beatles to my daughter, who broke up 30 years before she was born,
Right.
that would be like my parents saying, me saying to my parents, I don't get this Al Jolson. I mean, the time passes so much, and on the new Rolling Stone album list, the annoying list, you can see what they're doing. They're pushing everybody that we like way down the list, to the point where Sgt. Pepper's had a bad couple of years. It used to be number 1, now it's dropped to like number 25.
Oh,
The pitching went away. The hitting, they can't hit anymore. I don't know what happened there. So,
that's just I don't get it. I would say to somebody that doesn't get the Beatles, well, I don't get Little Baby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what is that about?
Right.
And the Beatles transcended their time, whereas all of this contemporary shite is kind of it's old a week later. There's nothing as cold as last week's hip hop hit.
Yeah.
But people are still buying the Beatles catalog and eventually getting into it, as your daughter surely will at some point.
The most exciting thing for me last week was, as we're all locked in here and we're all doing stuff that we normally wouldn't do, or sometimes you get hooked on YouTube for a couple of hours and you just start flitting around. And you can't have seen everything that the Beatles ever put out or hear it. And I discovered, and I'm sure other people probably have heard this, they have the stripped out version of John and Paul singing I Feel Fine. No music, just the two of them.
Right.
Just their voices. And it's the original. And it's so good. Right. I almost cried. They were so good together.
Right.
They were.
They just were. I mean, it's a great record, obviously, but my God, they didn't even need the music.
No,
they were that good. But it was a snapshot in time. It was a snapshot in our lives. And I wrote her out of the will. It is true.
Yeah. Well, I think that's good.
She will pay the price at some point.
I figured you would have locked her.
Will her your Beatles albums?
I thought that you would have just locked her in a room and just made her. I thought you would just locked her in the bathroom and just played Beatles records all the way through, just blaring them in there, just Sgt. Pepper's over and over again. And do you get it now? Do you finally get it? I thought that would.
That'll show her
your solution.
That'll teach her.
I played Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds for my class yesterday. We're into psychedelia, and I'm trying to blow their minds real good. And I told them about the LSD, Lucy, Sky, Diamonds.
They denied. The Beatles denied that was it. They said it wasn't true.
No, that wasn't what it was.
Here's my counter to that.
Yeah,
it's a great excuse. Okay, his son Julian, right? His son Julian told him that.
Were these kids that had not heard the song before? Mostly. Introducing it to them.
That's amazing.
It's at the point where I'll say, "How many of you have heard of Chuck Berry?" And like a couple of hands will go shoot up, maybe tentatively. Right. So you start from square one now. Wasn't always true 10, 15 years ago. I could presume a certain basic familiarity with the stars of that era, and but not anymore. So everything is just starting from scratch. But about Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, the odds of those 3 letters falling in that order? 1 in 10,000. It's 21 over 26 by 26 by 26. So case closed.
No, but it was a picture that Julian Lennon drew, and it was a diamond. That's what it was. I mean, that's the story. When you said you were reviewing all of those concerts for all those years for the local paper, and I'm not going to make you do just one, but what are like maybe 4 or 5 of the shows that you saw in Greensboro and Winston-Salem and Chapel Hill and in Raleigh and in the area that just blew you away, that still stand out in your mind all these years later?
Oh God, Lord, there's so many of them.
Right.
Boy, just historic events. Are you talking about ones I reviewed or just ones I attended as a fan?
Ones that you attended as a fan or reviewed, and just like, again, there's been so many of them, but a few of them that just stick out as like, this is amazing, and I was glad I was there that night, and this is incredible.
Oh yeah. I saw Springsteen when I was in college. He played at Duke Page Auditorium, 1,500 seat place.
Right.
And it's now the first concert that he played every song on Born to Run at.
Wow.
Which was just out.
Yeah.
Just out.
That's
and I'd never heard of Springsteen. There was this girl we knew, my friend and I, says, you have to go see this guy with me. So we said, okay, whatever. And we were on the front row, standing on our seats the whole time. And it was just a mind-blowing experience. He really saved, I think, rock music at a time when it could have gone. He really brought excitement back to it in performance, I think, at least anyway. And that was a great show. Lord, it's like I also got to see Paul McCartney. Everyone says, what's your favorite concert? It was a Paul McCartney concert in 2003 that I reviewed for the News and Record in Raleigh.
Yeah.
Their entertainment arena or whatever that cement plant is. And I'd seen him before. I think I'd seen him 3 times before that. But now he had this young band, this new younger band who were kind of kicking his ass. And there was something about that show. It started out like Cirque du Soleil with this bizarre procession of animals and people in weird costumes, and it just put you in another frame of reference. It was like dropping a hit of acid, and then comes the concert. It was just like Sgt. Pepper's. It opens up with Sergeant, it sets you in a place and a time, enjoy the show and all that sort of stuff. And he came out, and 4 songs into it, I looked at my friend and said, this is shaping up to be the best concert I've ever seen. Wow. And it was. It was mind-blowing in every aspect.
Any other big ones that come to mind that were like some ones that just blew your mind during that particular era?
That particular year. Well, I could tell you one. When I moved to New York, again, timing is everything, right? The first show I saw was the Ramones at Cbgb.
I was going to say, when you were in New York, that was probably blowing up, that whole Cbgb thing and everything.
Yeah, it was. It was one of the last times they were able to play there. They're getting big enough that they didn't, they're outgrowing Cbgbs. But that was the loudest concert I've ever seen. That and The Who at the Greensboro Coliseum in 1976. I think it was Keith Moon's last tour, which was like a preview of Cincinnati. You remember the infamous Cincinnati show?
It was 79, yeah, sure.
Yeah. The crush was so great. You remember, what do they call it? Festival seating. Well, there's nothing festive about it, the crowd was packed so tight that my feet left the ground during the concert.
Involuntarily.
Great concert. You had a tolerance for that sort of thing.
I don't think that was your feet. That was the guy behind you. Very strange. You don't want to talk about it. I understand.
Were you afraid for your safety at any point? Did you think, I don't have any control over this, I'm going to get trampled?
Not a whit.
Yeah, good.
Fearless. It's like Florida fans, 90,000 of them wanting to crowd into the football stadium during COVID. I guess that's stupidity.
Okay. Look, we promise not to get political, but God damn it, you opened the door. We're going there. Your politics line up pretty much alongside ours.
Oh yeah, I read your
one. Have you voted yet?
No, I'm going to go the first day of. I want to do it in person, so I'm going to do it when go to one of the early voting places.
It started today.
Starts today.
It's on right now. Yes, right. Absolutely.
Yep.
Starts today.
That's my plan.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything about lines or anything? I hope there are some.
I'm not getting reports of long lines right now, but we're trying to take a look right now and see if that's going to be a thing. Because I'm going with a group of people on Saturday myself. So yeah, we're trying to monitor that situation.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, Park. I'm doing 4 days of 3 hours each, where I hand out the little blue cards with the names of all the camp. So I will, I'll be out there. I'll be able to tell.
Yeah,
I hope I run out of cards really fast.
I hope so too.
Brad has figured he's not hated enough. He'd like to go ahead and make himself hated a little more by being that guy at the polls.
The only reason I agreed to do this is because I know I'm going to be wearing a mask. Nobody will know who I am. I'll put a baseball cap and a mask. They won't know it's me. They won't know it's me.
It's an interesting time in our culture, like as far as the 2020 being the kind of year that it's been. I don't know. I mean, obviously you guys have been around longer than I have, and there's been some really bad times in America, and there were the gas lines and inflation and stuff like that. But I don't recall, obviously the Great Recession of 2008, 2009 was terrible. But we also, at that point in time, we didn't have a virus coming to kill us during those particular times either.
I think the difference, at least I'll go first here. The difference between everything you just named and now is they had an end point.
Yeah, exactly.
We do not see an end to this, and it looks like we're regressing. The world is regressing. Europe is blowing up again, and many of the United States are blowing. We're way past 50,000 a day again, and we have a president in denial. And the combination, Park, the Vietnam War seemed like it went on forever. Okay,
yeah,
we're old enough to remember that, but even that did come to an end. And what I really worry about is, and it gets said and gets thrown away, is that coronaviruses have always been with us. And we may start to see this more frequently, different forms of it, which leads you to believe we can come up with a vaccine tomorrow and it's not going to affect what's going to happen 3 to 5 years from now. We could be in this over and over again, and nobody is willing to say, oh, no, we're not. We just got to fix this one, and we've learned our lesson. Your view.
Well, the only thing, I took an epidemiology course in grad school. I got a degree in, of all things, environmental science, because I thought I was going to make a right turn out of rock journalism into, and work for the National Oceanic Administration and get involved with beaches and beach preservation. That was an issue for me because I read all these books on beaches and coastlines, and so I took a course in epidemiology. And it is not the parasite's desire to kill its host, So accommodation is made over time. And I would hope that this is not a lasting thing. I mean, the pandemic of 1918, the Spanish flu, was not a lasting thing either. So even, and it could just become like the flu, where every year, some people get it, some people die from it, but it's not so virulent that it wipes out hundreds of thousands of people. So from a science perspective, it is really not in the virus's interest to kill its host. And over time, the interaction and the adjustments that it makes evolutionary, I hope, tamp it down. And for one main reason, a personal reason, I don't want to lecture through a mask anymore.
Yeah.
I've had enough. I've just give me the damn virus and let me get it over with. I just am tired of wearing a paper mask and having to talk through it for 2 hours at a time. It just does. It exacerbates my allergies. It's an inconvenience, that's for sure. But let me ask you guys a question, because in my experience, I know a lot of people. I only know one person who's actually gotten it. And he was like a pothead. And I figure that he got it from communal bong or something like that.
It's possible.
So he's the least surprising person. If you had said name one person that was going to get this, and that would be him. But I don't know anybody else that's gotten it. I've heard people say, "Oh, my mother-in-law's uncle had it" or something, but I don't know anybody that has it. Do you?
I had an outbreak at the place where I work, so I know several people who had it, and I also know the spouses of those people who had it. And one of them, the spouse of one of my friends, was in ICU for a while. So yeah, I've known some people. I don't know how close they were to death or how bad it was, but it was pretty bad for a few folks that I know for sure.
Right. I just wondered. I thought it was odd that personally I don't know anybody. However, I mean, you look at the music scene, like losing John Prine, and Adam Schlesinger of Fountains of Wayne,
right?
And just there was a pretty long. I put together a list of people that had died from coronavirus, and it's scary. Mark Mothersbaugh of Devo, who has a very similar name to mine.
Yeah. Did he die?
No, but he was on a ventilator, and he nearly died. He nearly passed. He's posted and written very profoundly about what it was like. My fear is being a long hauler of getting it, turning into one of these cases that you never get over it.
Right. The only person I know that's gotten it is Barron Trump.
That's right. Yeah, that's the only guy. Your buddy Barron. Why are you attacking the president's son, Brad?
He's young and he's strong.
Why are you attacking a child, Brad?
And I don't know. Right, I forgot all about
that. I don't know why you're doing that. I think when we talk about the Spanish flu, I'm sure there was a great deal of willful ignorance and a lot of stupidity that was going on then, but it wasn't as easy to distribute the willful ignorance and the stupidity as it is now.
Actually, it was, and they found that I think the city of Philadelphia was the worst in the country.
Holy crap!
They were in full denial there, and they reopened.
I've always hated Philly. I've always hated that town.
And I think they suffered the worst of all big cities. And by the way, if I can just correct you guys, it was the 1917 flu.
Why does he keep saying it?
He hasn't said it for a couple of weeks anymore.
Really?
He dropped the year of the Spanish flu when
taking the steroids wiped that out of his mind or whatever.
He was trolling on purpose. I'm going back and forth on reading the statistics and the polling here, and sometimes you get a number that makes you feel good about the possibility that the American people aren't as stupid as we thought, because we're plus 16 on Are You Better Off Than You Were 4 years ago, and that's probably the result of a lot of people's stock portfolios going up. But Trump is minus 20% on the country being better off. So that means that there are a lot of people who can distinguish between the difference of their own personal well-being and the well-being of the country. If that's true, Trump is really done for it, because then you have to add in all the people who aren't better off than they were 4 years ago, who have turned on him, and then add in the people who may be personally better off, and he doesn't have a big pool to pull out of anymore. Yes or no?
Yes, and I hope he continues to hold these rallies and sicken his base.
Yeah.
It's weird to think that nobody's saying, you might kill some potential voters. Like, nobody has ever said that to him or anybody involved with the campaign. Apparently, he's like,
that's not operative. You can't say that to him. I think I used this phrase about 4 or 5 months ago, and it now applies more than ever. The famous Potemkin Village analogy, and it's on demonstration 2 times a day now. When Trump makes all the people behind him wear masks, where the staff puts everybody in a mask, and then the thousands of people out in front of him, none of them are wearing masks.
Right.
So that is so insulting to think that we're that stupid. But they think we're that stupid. They think we're that dumb. And I think it's going to come to a crashing end here.
Hey, there's a guy blowing leaves in my driveway. You want me to tell him to shut up?
No, you're fine. It's fine.
All right. It adds to the ambiance.
Sure. This is part of the charm. So with all the signs that you're seeing, are you hopeful, Park, that Trump is going to lose and Joe Biden's going to be our next president?
I am hopeful. I am hopeful. I'm always optimistic and then generally proved wrong. But I don't see how he has a path to win.
Right.
How does somebody that is detested by 60% of the country win the presidency under any circumstances.
Yeah.
Unless some combination of voter suppression, cheating beyond belief, just outright, and then throwing it into the courts like Bush Jr. did in 2000.
Exactly.
But if it comes to that, civil war, forget it. There's going to be, I think that would be the tipping point.
Well, I've often wondered if there was Facebook in 1860, what would it have looked like? And would it look like anything like what we're seeing today? If there was social media and there was Twitter and there was YouTube and there was all this other stuff in 1860 or 1859, what might it have looked like? And I wonder if it looked like anything like what we're seeing now. And I don't know the answer to that question. It's just something that I kind of muse upon from time to time.
Yeah, I don't know. How can he win? How can he win? He is now a known quantity. There's 4 years of fuck ups.
Yeah.
The one thing I do give him credit for is keeping so many plates spinning in the air. Anything he does on any given day would sink somebody permanently. Right. But it's always something else. He has an uncanny ability to, it's like the more scandals, the more he's able to float above it.
Well, it's all about critical mass, though. We've been talking about this every day for 4 years, and I've often posited the idea that there will be a point where it's just too much, and you never know when you're going to reach that until it's been reached. And you see the way he uses and abuses people, and no matter what people say publicly, no matter what they say to the CNN reporter who puts the shotgun mic in front of them at the rally. I mean, if you watch some of this video the last few days, you want to just tear your hair out, that these people will say, well, I'm not afraid of getting it. If I die, I die. Okay. But Trump, as you know, if you do business with Trump, you will get dirty and your reputation will be destroyed, and you'll probably never work in the business again, whatever business it is. And when I saw in Iowa on Wednesday, him bring up famous Olympic wrestler and local Iowa hero Dan Gable, and announced right there he's going to give him the Medal of Freedom. Why, I was as excited as when I saw Rush Limbaugh get that at the Union address. But that's kind of a below the radar thing that nobody's talking about. But it's a very smart thing politically. But everyone's seen that. We know that he will just suck up to people. And he will do the most obvious thing to be just so solicitous. They know what he's doing. And I think the one thing that has burned out is the effectiveness of 7,000 people rallies. We know the act. We know the shtick. It's the same material. It's the same grievances. It's Donald Trump's Festivus every night. Grievances and feats of strength. Okay, I beat the virus and everybody's against me. And just because people show up at an airport, I don't think that that's going to translate into the fact that the millions of grandparents around the country who have been addressed directly by Joe Biden the last few days, and he said to them, you haven't been able to see your grandkids for a year. And
that is a strong message.
Because Donald Trump is a fuck up. That's why you haven't seen that. I think Dan Gable, Medal of Freedom versus millions of grandparents in Florida and a lot of other states. Did you know that the oldest state in the country demographically is Maine?
Holy crap, really?
Yeah.
Like for median age or whatever?
Yeah. It's the oldest state.
Well, let me counter what you're saying with two words: boat rallies. The boat rallies are going to carry Donald Trump all the way through to re-election.
Yeah.
That's like land of the, where was it? Lake of the
Ozarks.
Yeah. Oh, the Ozarks. Yeah. It was one of the first super spreader events, wasn't it?
That's exactly right.
It's like the Woodstock of super spreader events. You were there.
That's right. And then the super spreader
documentary. Is there going to be a big documentary?
And then it moved to the Lollapalooza of super spreader events, which was actually at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So it's gone full circle, really.
Yeah, he killed his fellow Republican and friend and presidential candidate, Herman Cain.
Herman Cain, that's right. Who we just don't hear that much about anymore.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
Let's move on to happier times. Let's talk about the death of Eddie Van Halen, because I've been over the past week I've been overdosing on a lot of the Eddie Van Halen stuff on YouTube, and this is one of the great things about technology. I was going to talk to you about this a moment ago because you were talking about the music business and stuff. I love Spotify. I use Spotify all the time, every day. I love making my playlists. I love discovering new music, but I also know that it has murdered the music business. Like if you're not Taylor Swift and Katy Perry, you're not making any money off of Spotify. And the next Taylor Swift and the next Katy Perry and the next Kings of Leon or whoever, they're not able to do anything because this app, which is on 100 million phones all over the place, it's destroying artists. So the technology which feeds us and gives us and nurtures us with this music is also destroying the very business itself. Going against your thing about the parasites, the parasite doesn't want to kill its host, but it looks like the parasite that is Spotify is killing the host.
Yeah, Spotify, and what are some of the others?
Pandora, Tidal,
American,
Apple
Amazon
Music.
Prime,
Napster.
Unlimited, Amazon Unlimited, which I have, and part of it, I don't know. I gave up after a certain point, but I challenged my students, to give something back to the musicians they listen to. Buy a CD or a stream once in a while. How do you think these people are going to, I remember at some point reading that 17% fewer people were identifying as musicians on their tax returns.
Sure.
And that was like around 2003, that was a long time ago. And it's become an avocation for many. And I know someone, David Lowery of Cracker, wrote an interesting article laying out the economics of Spotify from the point of view of an artist. And he actually wound up getting his PhD in economics, and he teaches at the University of Georgia.
Wow.
Still tours with Cracker too. But, he said 10,000 plays on Spotify translated into a check for 17 cents.
Jeepers.
what
Get it.
Yeah, and people don't buy physical media anymore. Oddly enough, though, there are some younger people who will spend $30 for a vinyl album.
Yeah.
That I don't get. I paid like $5 to $10 for my albums when I was growing up. Now they're $25 and $30. Have you all seen the little stands over at Barnes and Noble with the vinyls in them? They call them vinyls now.
Like you can't impart to kids what it was like when you went to college, and whatever college town you were in. Mine was Columbus, Ohio State, and there would be several of the greatest record stores that you would just spend all day, and you'd look through you keep looking through the same damn records that you.
Great.
I was just there, but and there's something about albums, and I still have a whole bunch of albums. A couple weeks ago, when one of the guys from the Four Seasons died, I dug in and I found I have the Four Seasons greatest hits from 1963. It's a great album. It still works. It's still there, and it's physical. It does exist. It isn't just a thing. And again, it's I don't get the Beatles. Okay, I mean, you can't beat the present, and you can't beat progress, and it's not about that. But
there's a Facebook group called Cult of the Record Bar. Have you heard of it?
No, I've never heard of this.
Yeah, it's all the people that used to work at or frequent the record bar. And
I think my friend used to work there, I think.
Yeah. It's like I hung out at those places the way previous generations hung out around the pickle barrel at the general store.
Right.
I thought I've been in Greensboro since 1987, and I don't know how early it was. It wasn't long after I moved here that they opened that giant Peaches record store. I think it was on High Point Road.
Yeah.
And I thought, holy shit, Greensboro's a real city. It's got Peaches. Because I thought that was just a big time, big city, big market chain. And as well, they're in Greensboro. Who knows how long ago they went out. But it's just a whole different situation right now.
Well, even
we can
CDs
pine for it here. We get to do that here. That's what we can do. Nobody can judge us.
Can you believe? I mean, CDs are obsolete.
Yeah.
They're like, and there is a CD store out at Quaker Village called BB's. I don't know if any of you ever went to it, but that became my, replacement hangout. And I knew everybody that worked there. And it was one of those places you talk to them about music. They turn you on to new stuff. People in the store would talk to each other. It was like a gathering place or something. I hated when it went out of business,
right?
Because there's nothing left.
Yeah.
They'll never know what a music store was.
Right. There's a certain amount of nostalgia for the CDs too, among like the millennials. That it's kind of like what vinyl was to a previous generation. They think there's a quaintness to the CD form itself, which I think is kind of humorous.
Well, that's ironic because when CDs displaced vinyl, it was they're impersonal. There's no art on them.
Exactly. It's a small.
Format. Yeah. But now at least it's something physical and you can hold it. So it's
right.
It is this generation's LP, 33 and a third LP.
More important than that, it's in a a wave format. So you're not getting stepped down MP3s.
Right, the compression. You're not getting all that. Yeah. This is something that Neil Young has been railing against for a long, long time. And finally, we do have all the server space where stuff doesn't need to be compressed, but the stuff is still compressed. So that's just, again, that's like music geek stuff. And speaking of music geek stuff, let's finish up by talking about Eddie Van Halen. I was born in 1970. So when the first album came out, I was like 7 or 8 years old. But by the time 1984 came out, it was fully like in my eyesight and in my consciousness and everything else. And I could go back and listen to the entire catalog. I know my brother was big on it and stuff like that. Eddie Van Halen was kind of a cultural icon for folks when I was growing up. If you asked pretty much any kid in America who the best guitarist is between 1978 and probably 1996 or 1998, there was only one answer. Some of the geeks in the 80s would give you like an Yngwie Malmsteen or a Stevie Vai or maybe a Larry Carlton or a Michael Hedges. But for most kids, they wanted to be Eddie Van Halen. And so, I mean, he was a cultural kind of icon. You've been seeing that over the past week.
That's right. And, people forget too, he was an exciting performer. It's one thing to be able to play that stuff, but you see pictures of him leaping around, and it gave you a visual performance too. He kind of, what Pete Townsend called the physical poetry of rock and roll. You got that at a Van Halen concert. As we were saying before we went on live, Eruption. That song on that little minute and a half show off bit where he does everything that you can do on a guitar and to a guitar and sort of introducing that tapping thing that he did was that first Van Halen album sold as many guitars as anything since the Beatles' first appearance on Ed Sullivan in 1964. It was just that important. And people forget, it came out, I think it was in 1979. Mm-hmm. The whole scene was transitioning into new wave music. You're starting to hear synth rock and the costumed performers and all that. And this was an old school rock band. Based around the Guitar Hero.
And the disco stuff was happening pretty big. And like you said, there's this thing that's not any of that. And oh my God. And it's perfectly aimed at like a high school male. Mm-hmm. That was the demographic for that thing. I mean, college kids liked it, sure, but it was like a 15 or 16-year-old boy. This is your jam. This is everything that you need. This is party. This is tits. This is beer. This is rock and roll. And that's what that album was.
Oh, wait a minute, Britt, how did you manage to get off of being hooked on Van Halen, but stick with wrestling all these years? It's the same demographic. Come on.
Arrested Development. That's what I call it right there. I call it Arrested Development. But yeah, he was, and the way that he played the finger tapping and all that stuff, he wasn't the first guy to do that, but he mastered it and he had a brand. And I've been looking back, and I think part of the reason that he was so appealing is if you look at Pete Townsend play the guitar, a lot of the times Pete Townsend, there was a joy there, but sometimes Pete Townsend looked like he was being tortured in a Turkish prison. Eddie Van Halen had this huge smile on his face, and he was very happy. Yeah. People love that, man. And girls dug it. They loved the boyish charm and all that. That was something that he didn't mean to as far as marketing goes, but that sold the music.
Right. And not to overlook Alex either. I think he was as much a monster on the drums. I mean, what a family, you know?
Well, it was an amazing point in time where, you know, Eddie's on drums, Alex is on guitar, and they go, hey, you know, we should switch. That was like, that changed the course of history forever, right?
Yes, that's right.
It's just
that day should be a red letter day, you know, the day they switched instruments.
Like, I don't really like drums that much. You like drums? Okay, you play drums. And then that's what happened. And then they find this guy named David Lee Roth, who happens to be not the greatest singer of all time, not really a guy that stays in tune that much. But as far as being a flamboyant front guy for that age, holy crap, he knew exactly what he was doing there.
Oh, he was great. He was like the Louis Prima of the rock generation.
I saw an interview with David Lee Roth. He goes, all these people are talking to me like, oh, he's like so original. He goes, no, I'm just ripping off like Ziggy Stardust and all this other shit that I see. That he never claimed to be original in any way, but he was a massive showman, and it's exactly what that era and that music needed.
Yep. And I didn't, as some people hate Van Hagar, you know, the mixed in car. I don't. I thought Sammy Hagar is a perfectly fine rock singer, guitar player. You know, he didn't have Roth's intellect and quick wit, but I thought actually he was better suited personally to the other guys in the band. You know, there wasn't a schism between. They're both sides of the band were interesting. And it's not like, for me, it wasn't like pick one. I liked them both.
You can.
Was Van Halen the group with the no brown M&Ms rider in the contract?
Yes.
And that changed history too.
That was the brilliance of David Lee Roth. He said he put that in there deliberately to see if the promoters read the rider,
the whole thing,
the
all the way through.
Yeah.
It's so strange, and Gene Simmons again, this is another a testament to Gene Simmons being able to make money. I think he gets a producer credit for that first album, and he helped discover the band and all that stuff. So he's been making money off that first album for 45 years or whatever, 42 years, I guess. So
give him a Medal of Honor.
If Trump thought he could win the election by
right.
Is that another caveat to the Jewish vote, Brad, to give Gene Simmons the Medal of Honor? Is that what Trump's going to do to Trump?
Don't go there. Just don't go there right now. It's very sensitive. Very, very sensitive.
I've always said it's very difficult to pick out your favorite Van Halen song. And I'm since we were, I'll throw this out as well. The day that Eddie Van Halen dies, there's no. This is even stupid to say because you guys will whack me on this. There's no radio station in this area that you can go to and they say, oh, Eddie Van Halen died. Let's play like 2 hours of Van Halen. And I was telling people, my friends this, I go, well, not only is it not happening in Greensboro or Winston-Salem or Raleigh, it's not happening maybe in San Antonio or Atlanta or Detroit. I don't know if there's any station there with live people on the air who would go, well, here's this interview with Van Halen that we did and with Eddie Van Halen in 1996. And here's like 2 hours of live. I don't think there's anybody to even do that anymore.
No, you may be, and I haven't checked it out, but the Sirius XM Classic Rock channel, they probably are doing something.
They did an Eddie Van Halen tribute channel. Right. I don't know if it's still up, but they did. So there's other ways, I guess, of getting it. Everything's changed. So you have playlists on these things, and people put up their own tributes and podcasts and whatnot. So it's out there, but it's not like you can hit the radio dial like you used to be able to. And I'd like to think that if I was, I DJ'd on QFS, the Guilford College station,
right,
for about 10 years,
right,
and had a little 2-hour block every week. It was just fun to go in there and play what you thought people needed to hear and mess with their minds. And it's all free form, so there's no playlist. And if I was doing that, I'd probably give the whole 2 hours to Eddie.
Sure.
Tributes to.
And that station has regularly over the years gotten all these results of being one of the best college stations in the country and stuff like that. It's recognized nationally.
The top 10. The Princeton Review rates it every year. It gets in the top 10. Yeah, it's fun. College radio.
It's a state of mind. Is there anything you want to plug on the way out? I know your books are for sale on Amazon. You've got the Fish book, and there's a Springsteen book that you helped kind of edit and contribute to and stuff.
I am working right now on a book for the UNC Press about and this could go either way with you guys. I'm watching for eye rolls. The subculture of beach music and shag dancing in the Carolinas.
Yeah, I'll eye roll.
Which is interesting because from the standpoint of view, it's all about white people getting into black music in a pre-segregation time.
Exactly. And trying to make it more palatable to white America. Absolutely.
Right. And the old R&B that the first generations of beach music fans liked, some of the best music ever made.
Okay.
Now, the guys in the ruffled shirts with the white bands that came along in the 70s, you can talk about that, but I love the old R&B that it was grounded on. And I also found it fascinating that at a point where the South was resisting segregation, there was all these kids who were going to the beach to listen to black music because the only place they could hear it was on jukeboxes at the beach, which is why it was called beach music.
I have a question. How does that parallel with Motown? What, are they running down just different tracks and appealing to different audiences, or?
Well, Motown, the label, the corporation was founded in 1960.
Right.
Beach music stuff goes back to the 40s when these guys were getting into records they couldn't even buy because it wasn't sold in their part of town,
Yeah.
And the only way you could hear like a soul record or an R&B record or like an Earl Bostic, he was a black saxophone player that they really liked, was on the jukeboxes in places like Cherry Grove and Ocean Drive, which were serviced with the old 45s that came off the jukeboxes at Atlantic Beach, which was the black beach that was neighboring to those white beaches. Yeah, so the whole thing sociologically is very fascinating. Musically, if you get into the real original beach music, it's mind-blowing R&B stuff.
That's interesting.
And the fact that white people were developing a dance based on black dance moves and black music at a time when the South was still resisting that it makes for an interesting story. So
I think John Mellencamp went through like a phase where he was really into that shag music and that beach music and stuff. Yeah.
What's his name? Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah.
Did an album called Beach House and the Moon, and he used the Tams on a track.
Oh, wow.
He even took him on tour with him, and they're a big beach music group. Yeah, so there's lots of angles to it. You dig a little, and there's a lot more than meets the eye.
Are any of these people still alive or to talk about it, or how did you do the research on it?
I've done a lot of interviews. I've been going down for years and talking to as many people as, I've had deathbed interviews with people who were just like on the verge of passing, and this was their last.
Oh, you're in another one right now.
Yeah.
I got about 10 minutes here. I've been coughing. Any final questions for me?
How do you sleep at night? That's my final question for you.
Yeah.
All right, Park Pewterbaugh, great. Loved having you on here.
Yeah, it's great talking to you guys.
Right, and I'll tell you what. Let's wait till after the election, and then we'll come in and clean up the mess on the floor, no matter what it looks like.
One way or the other.
All right,
sounds good.
Do it again. Park Pewterbaugh.
Take care. See ya.